A California physician was found dead in Las Vegas, in the trunk of a car. Dr. Thomas Kirk Berard was discovered on State Route 147 near the Lake Mead recreational area on March 7th. The 71-year-old man died from blunt force trauma to the head. Police found a lead, a young woman named Kelsey Turner. It turned out that her lavish lifestyle had actually been funded by the late doctor. Thomas Berard, a well-known child psychologist who had supported her financially for several years. When he decided to stop providing support, Kelsey was far from pleased. And when he suddenly disappeared in March 2019, his real partner grew suspicious. So what happened? Was Kelsey guilty? Why was she nicknamed Bad Barbie? And how did this terrifying story unfold? Before we dive in, I want to ask you to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, I'm curious, how do the stories I share affect the lives of my subscribers? Tell me how it impacts you. I'd love to read your thoughts. Now, let's get started. We return to California, a place familiar to many of us. Although our story ends in Las Vegas, we'll begin in the lesser-known city of Salina, located south of San Francisco along the coast. In the past, murders rarely shocked a city of 163,000 people. It was just another tragic episode in the endless conflict between rival groups. But when a well-known or beloved resident died, it immediately became the talk of the town. That was the case in March 2019, when news spread that one of their locals had been found dead 450 miles from home. It all began on the morning of March 7th, when Las Vegas police received a call from a concerned citizen. He was driving alone through the Lake Mead National Recreation Area, about 30 kilometers east of the city, when he came across a disturbing sight, a car abandoned in the middle of a dusty stretch of Route 147. It was later identified as a blue Mercedes-Benz C300. This wasn't the kind of vehicle people usually leave in the middle of nowhere. Something was clearly wrong. After a brief pause, the man called emergency services. When police arrived, they inspected the car parked along the road, covered in dust, with a broken window. Nearby, they noticed a stone, possibly a clue about what had happened. Cautiously entering the vehicle, officers saw empty seats and almost nothing left inside. But then a sense of unease hit them. The air felt heavy, and they caught the unmistakable scent of death coming from the trunk. It was clear they were about to find something horrifying. They decided to open the trunk, and, unfortunately, their suspicions were confirmed. Inside lay the body of an elderly man, likely between 60 and 70 years old, partially wrapped in sheets. At first glance, it was clear he had been dead for a long time. Next to the body, officers found blood-stained towels, latex gloves, a set of house keys, and what appeared to be his clothing. Further examination of the crime scene indicated that the man had most likely died from a blunt force strike to the head. Defensive wounds on his hands suggested a struggle. It was also discovered that he had been placed in the trunk after death, having previously been on the back seat. Without a doubt, this was murder. But the scene raised more questions than it answered. Why was he there? Who was he? Why was he killed? And who committed this crime? The mysterious details gradually began to come to light. The first step for investigators was identifying the deceased. The most reliable lead was the blue Mercedes-Benz. Running the license plate through the system, they discovered the car was registered to someone named Kwong. However, after checking his contacts, police learned the car had actually been rented by a woman named Kelsey Turner, who had been using it since November of the previous year. Even stranger, neither Kwong nor Kelsey had been making the payments. They came directly from a man named Dr. Thomas Berard, a resident of Salina, California, hundreds of miles from Las Vegas. After checking Thomas's name in their records, police quickly found a missing person report. Just a few days earlier, his long-term partner Judy had reported him missing. Judy confirmed the police's worst fears. Seeing the body, she was shocked and devastated. All that remained of her beloved partner of 17 years was a mutilated corpse. He had been brutally murdered and left in the desert. She had a chilling premonition about why the California physician had ended up dead in the trunk of a car in Las Vegas.
A California physician is found dead in Las Vegas in the trunk of a car. Dr. Thomas Kirk Berard was found on State Route 147 near the Lake Mead recreational area back on March 7th. The 71-year-old from Salinas died from blunt force injuries to his head. 8 News Now reporter Sally Jaramillo joins us live. And Sally, you spoke with Bert's girlfriend, and she became concerned when he didn't come home. What did she have to say?
Yes, I spoke to Judy Irv, a lifelong girlfriend to Dr. Berard. She tells me he loved to visit Las Vegas. He came here for multiple conferences, only this time he never made it back home.
It's been horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible.
On March 7, police found Dr. Thomas Kirk Berard in the trunk of an abandoned car on State Route 147 near Lake Mead. Dr. Burchard's girlfriend Judy Earp says he came to Las Vegas on Friday, March 1st and was supposed to return home on March 4th.
My last communications with him was that he had looked forward to coming home on Monday.
After trying to reach him, she found it strange that his phone was turned off.
Monday I went to the airport and he didn't return home. He wasn't on the plane at all. And then I knew something was wrong. It wasn't just a lost phone or, missed flight.
She checked with his secretary and heard nothing. Then she filed a missing persons report. Earp says his death is a shock to all who knew him.
It's been devastating for the community, the entire community. He was so devoted to his patients. He was 71 years old and he didn't want to retire.
Dr. Burchard is described as a generous person with both his time and money.
We've been together for 17 years. He helped me raise my 4 children, who are now all adults. He was just, a really devoted, family man.
Earp hopes whoever did this will be caught soon and brought to justice.
I just think that whoever did this has to be soulless. Can't even be a human being.
Dr. Burchard worked with Montage Health. In a statement, Community Health of the Monterey Peninsula spokeswoman Mary Baker said, quote, Dr. Burchard was a psychiatrist in our behavioral health program for almost 40 years and was very helpful to many patients. It's a very sad situation and our hearts go out to his family, friends, patients, and colleagues. We are notifying his patients and providing grief counseling for staff. Reporting live, Sally Jaramillo, 8 News Now.
At the time of his death, Dr. Thomas Burchard was 71 years old. In 2002, he moved to Salina with Judy. They met, fell in love, and this happened just a year after his previous divorce. A divorce that, as it would later turn out, played a significant role in this story. Thomas was more than just a name in the community. As a child psychologist, he had a calm demeanor and a gift for putting people at ease. His patients truly adored him. He entertained them with tricks and jokes, supported families through difficult times. It was no surprise that his caring nature and dedication to his profession made him a respected doctor. He genuinely loved his work almost as much as his patients valued him. After 4 decades at the Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula, retirement was on the horizon. But Thomas wasn't the type to simply step away. Instead, he shifted to a 4-day work week so patients could get the care they needed. More free time allowed him to enjoy life outside of work, spending more time with Judy and frequently traveling to Las Vegas and other U.S. cities. Sometimes they attended medical conferences, and other times they simply enjoyed the city. On March 1st, 2019, Thomas booked another trip to Las Vegas, this time on his own. The purpose of the trip was not related to Judy. He planned to meet with another woman. It's important to note that Judy was fully aware of this woman's existence. Their relationship was more complicated than it appeared at first glance. It was a short weekend, and Thomas was supposed to return home on Monday, March 4th. The trip was not meant to be romantic or sexual, just business meetings, or so Judy thought. But on March 3rd, Thomas had not arrived at the airport or boarded his flight, which caused serious concern for Judy. Judy was surprised that he hadn't contacted her the day before, but the fact that Tom didn't respond on the day of his return was highly unusual. There were also less obvious reasons for concern. Judy suspected that Tom might have been in the early stages of dementia, which could explain the lack of communication over the past few days. It's worth noting that Tom had apparently sent her messages, but according to Judy, they didn't resemble his usual style at all. The language was crude, awkward, completely unlike how he normally communicated. Judy suspected that someone might have been trying to impersonate him. In response to his disappearance, Judy called the Las Vegas police and asked them to check on Thomas's welfare, as well as the woman he was supposed to meet. That woman was Kelsey Turner, the same Kelsey who, it turned out, had rented the Mercedes. For investigators, the case was already beginning to fall into place. The key pieces of the puzzle were there. The next step was establishing the connection between Thomas Burchard and Kelsey Turner. Judy, eager to help clarify the circumstances of his disappearance, fully cooperated with investigators and revealed critical details that became key to the investigation. She revealed everything she knew about his relationship with Kelsey, at least from her perspective. And from this point of view, let's dive into the troubling world of Kelsey Turner. Detectives, examining her profile, learned that Kelsey was a 25-year-old single mother living in Las Vegas. She was born on May 5, 1993, to Samantha and Christopher Ingram. As a child, the family moved from Norfolk, Virginia to Jonesboro, Arkansas. where she stayed through college. At Arkansas State University, Kelsey was known as an attractive girl, but nothing particularly remarkable. I want to emphasize this, because despite her inflated ego, she really didn't stand out academically. Like many girls of her generation, Kelsey began building a social media presence, but her true passion turned out to be modeling, not academic achievement. After graduating, she decided to move to Salina, California, to pursue a career as a pinup model. And this attempt, at least temporarily, yielded results. With her golden blonde hair and nearly flawless skin, Kelsey fit the typical standards of modeling agencies. She landed a series of small contracts, mostly for local adult magazines. She can still be found on Instagram, where she brands herself as Bad Barbie. There are many provocative photos on beds, with drugs, sometimes showing intimate parts of her body. Through her online career, she amassed over 115,000 followers and even secured a few sponsorship deals. But as her ambitions grew, Kelsey began to feel her opportunities were limited. Her next move was Las Vegas. There, her career picked up momentum, and she began building her own name, landing contracts with well-known brands like 110 and Maxim. Her most notable work came in 2017 when she appeared in Playboy Italia. From that moment, her online presence skyrocketed by 2019. She had over 100,000 Instagram followers closely watching her Las Vegas life. Red carpet events, glamorous parties, professional photo shoots, often provocative. Despite numerous admirers, Kelsey's personal life was far from perfect. She had several short-term relationships, but the men she attracted often turned out to be problematic. For example, her partner Greg. They dated after Kelsey moved to Las Vegas and had a son, but the relationship didn't last. In January 2019, Greg was arrested for choking and domestic violence. One can only imagine what their relationship was like before that. After the breakup, Kelsey was left to raise her son alone. She rented a house in Las Vegas, living there with her mother and son, but throughout 2019 she spent less and less time there. Instead, she rented a separate apartment with her new boyfriend, John Logan Kennison, and close friend Diana Pena. It's worth noting that both would later play key roles in this story. Despite her past success, Kelsey's career began to stall. Even working with Playboy Italia didn't provide financial stability. Soon, it became difficult for her to pay bills, support her son, and maintain the luxurious lifestyle she was used to. In such a situation, a bright and ambitious person needs to find a way out, perhaps find a steady job, and seriously consider the future. Long-term planning? Sure, maybe that should have happened, but we're talking about Kelsey Turner, so none of that occurred. And this is exactly where our story intersects with the wealthy doctor, Thomas Berard. According to Judy, who was fully aware of their communication, Tom met Kelsey online. They began exchanging messages, forming a relationship that, from the outside, looked almost transactional. While no one could say exactly what these interactions truly were, all signs pointed to Tom becoming Kelsey's sugar daddy, an older man who financially supported a younger woman in exchange for attention and companionship. Although sugar daddies typically seek more than just messages, it appears Tom never crossed that line. He was more like a therapist. In the letters, Kelsey often confided in Thomas, describing how difficult it was to be a young mother with limited finances. She painted a picture of desperation that seemed to tug at Tom's generous heart and prompted him to provide financial support. Despite differing opinions about their dynamic, one thing was clear: Tom genuinely wanted to help. It's also worth noting his charitable nature in other areas of life. According to Judy, he could perform tricks, turning a single dollar into hundreds, and give it away to someone in need. He always tried to help people and listen to anyone with a sad story. And, of course, some tried to take advantage of that. Remember the house she rented for herself, her son, and her mother, as well as the other apartment she shared with two roommates? It turned out both were funded by Tom. $3,200 per month for the house was paid directly from his account. And records show he had been doing this for at least a year, over $38,000. But that wasn't all. As you might guess, after 17 years together, Judy knew Tom's finances well. It was known that he was wealthy, but when she told authorities that Tom had spent over $300,000 on Kelsey over the years, they were shocked. It turned out Tom did the same with other women. Over decades, he met young beauties online, made them his sugar babies, and generously gave money and gifts in exchange for attention. It's clear this contributed to the breakup and divorce in 2001. Knowing about Tom's relationship with Kelsey, Judy tried to view it more leniently. Besides, this wasn't the first time Tom had helped someone in need. But the difference was that Kelsey turned out to be a master manipulator. She learned to exploit his compassion and kindness for her own benefit. constant crises with bills, threats of eviction, or medical needs for her son. Tom and Kelsey's relationship was complicated and atypical. What started as a simple financial arrangement gradually became something tangled. Tom became increasingly emotionally invested, and Kelsey grew more dependent. But the most important woman in his life remained Judy. She could no longer watch all this unfold. She strongly urged Tom to stop financially supporting Kelsey. His generosity was getting out of control, and Kelsey was taking advantage of him. His finances were nearly depleted, leaving little for retirement and for Judy. At first, Tom hesitated, as Kelsey had supposedly claimed her current boyfriend was abusive, that she had no money to leave and nowhere to go. Perhaps out of guilt or concern, he felt responsible for her welfare. But eventually, Tom agreed it was time to end their arrangement. Before the final break, he decided to see for himself whether Kelsey was truly as desperate as she claimed. He booked a flight for March 1st to meet her in person and deliver the bad news. Unfortunately, this ended in tragedy. The next day after arriving in Las Vegas, Tom called Judy, furious. What he saw didn't match Kelsey's words at all. She wasn't suffering, wasn't desperate, and wasn't even living full-time with her mother and son. He also didn't notice any signs of abuse. Tom felt deceived, and of course, this upset him deeply. The last message he sent Judy was, "I need to see everything for myself. Kelsey is a real liar." The next thing Judy knew, Tom had missed his flight home after telling Kelsey he was ending their arrangement. That's when Judy contacted authorities, asking them to check on his welfare. Police arrived at Kelsey's house on March 5th, 2 days before Tom's body was found. But without a warrant, they had no right to enter. And, strangely enough, no one was home. Through the windows, officers noticed that the house was nearly empty and carelessly cleaned. The back windows were wide open, and the front door was unlocked. But without a warrant, no entry. According to the landlord, Tom had prepaid the rent from December 2018 through June 2019, leaving 3 months still covered. So it was odd to see the house empty and apparently vacated early. None of these facts made sense until Tom's body was discovered. After that, the police had enough grounds to enter the property. During the search, no one was there. Not Kelsey, her family, or her boyfriend John. But a careful inspection revealed signs of a violent struggle. One of the interior doors was broken in half, and there were bloodstains on the walls and floor. Forensic analysis found fingerprints belonging to Kelsey, John, and Diana. Cleaning supplies were scattered around the house, indicating a rushed but incomplete attempt to erase traces. In the bathroom, towels matching those found with Tom's body were discovered. Among the remaining personal items was his notebook, which offered a chilling insight into the dynamics of Tom and Kelsey's relationship. According to his notes, Kelsey occasionally blackmailed him, threatening that if he didn't pay her regularly, she would tell friends, family, and his workplace that he allegedly possessed illegal material involving minors. It's important to note that thorough forensic investigation found no evidence of these claims. Everything, to the best of available knowledge, was fabricated. But for a respected child psychologist, even the hint of such allegations would have been devastating. With these horrifying discoveries came one question: where had Kelsey gone? Neighbors reported seeing Kelsey, John, and Diana leave the house on March 6th, but no one had seen them since, suggesting a deliberate flight from the crime scene. Police checked Kelsey's second apartment, but it was also empty and offered no clues. The best chance to track the fugitives lay in phone records, which authorities gained access to on March 12th. The data showed that Tom's phone went silent on March 3rd, while the phones of Kelsey, John, and Diana left the house together on March 6th. This indicated that Tom was likely killed between those dates. Police launched a manhunt for Kelsey, John, and Diana, but despite their efforts, the three vanished, literally leaving no trace. Then, unexpectedly, a few days later, Diana showed up at the police station herself. Why? It was a tactical move. She confessed her involvement in Tom's murder and tried to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. This is how the story of Tom's final trip to the city of sin began to unfold. On March 2nd, Diana met Tom for the first time. She had just finished her shift as a bartender and asked Kelsey for a ride home. When the blue Mercedes pulled up, it wasn't Kelsey behind the wheel, it was the doctor himself. Not knowing the city, Tom handed his phone to Kelsey so she could open Google Maps. But instead of helping with directions, she had other plans. At that moment, Kelsey violated Tom's privacy by looking through his messages and made a shocking discovery. There were messages to her mother in his inbox. But before jumping to conclusions, these messages weren't confrontational at all. Tom was writing to Kelsey's mother because he was concerned about her lifestyle, not just the alcohol and drugs, but also the well-being of her son. But Kelsey, as usual, didn't appreciate the concern and erupted in anger. Tom insisted he was acting out of care, but couldn't ignore the harmful effects of drugs and alcohol on her life. Meanwhile, Diana watched from the background as the argument escalated. Tom didn't understand why Kelsey was so furious since he was only trying to help. He even said he loved her, but not the drugs. Instead, Kelsey became even more aggressive, shouting, accusing him of cheating, and even starting to hit him. When they arrived at the house, the situation worsened with her boyfriend, John. Remember, Kelsey had told Tom before that John could be violent. That was never proven, but it was clear that neither Kelsey nor John wanted their free lifestyle to end. In a panic, Tom hid in the guest room, but Kelsey, still enraged, turned to John and ordered, "Take care of Tom." John burst into the room with a baseball bat and attacked him. Diana, shocked, managed to fend John off. The elderly man, unfortunately, fell to the floor. She begged for him to be taken to a hospital. To calm Diana, John and Kelsey agreed to put Tom in the trunk of the Mercedes and promised to find a doctor. At that moment, Tom weakly spoke to Diana. "They're going to kill me, aren't they?" Kelsey and John told her to go upstairs and clean up the mess in the room. As Diana walked away, she heard Kelsey tell John, "Finish the job." Hearing a loud noise, Diana rushed downstairs and saw John holding a gun, already covered in blood, as was Tom. Kelsey coldly told Diana, "He's dead." Although no shots were fired, Tom was effectively killed by a blow from the gun. After that, Diana, stunned, seemed paralyzed, and mindlessly started washing dishes in the kitchen. Meanwhile, John shoved Tom's body into the trunk and fled, leaving the car with the body in the desert. In the house, Kelsey and Diana tried to erase all traces of the crime. When John returned, the three of them fled. The guilt slowly weighed on Diana. Although she initially ran away with the pair, she eventually convinced them to let her go and immediately turned herself into the authorities. After that, the police had a complete picture of the events. The hunt for Kelsey and John intensified. They stayed completely silent for over a week. But on the 21st of March 2019, following a tip from Stockton police, Kelsey Turner was finally arrested and brought to Las Vegas, where she was placed in a holding cell, awaiting trial.
Playboy model has been arrested in the case of a California psychiatrist who was murdered in Las Vegas earlier this month. Police arrested 25-year-old Kelsey Turner for the death of Dr. Thomas Bouchard. His body found March 7th in a car near the entrance of Lake Mead National Recreation Center. The coroner revealed that Bouchard had been bludgeoned to death.
It's been devastating. It really it has. It's the worst nightmare ever. I hope nobody ever has to go through this. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Turner faces one count of murder. She reportedly worked as a model and appeared in Playboy and Maxim magazine.
John was also found, and when all three were finally in custody, the prosecution was able to build the case. Despite the obviousness of the crime, all three initially denied any involvement. Due to the pandemic and other circumstances, the trial was delayed. While in jail, Kelsey gave birth to a child. After a 3-year delay, Tom's family finally received justice. The first to be sentenced was Diana, who confessed and cooperated with the police. She pled guilty not to murder, but to aiding and abetting, and received a 3-year probation sentence. Next was John, who pled guilty to second-degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to 18 to 45 years.
I mean, I think from what we have here, everyone can agree this is an utterly toxic love triangle that just ended as brutally and as terribly as one can imagine. Just the sheer length of time and the pain that Dr. Bouchard must have gone through is unimaginable. And Mr. Kennison, you did that. And you took this man away from people who obviously loved him and patients who very much needed him. And so I know you're aware that you're taking, harsh penalty for this because what you did is inexcusable. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, you're hereby judged guilty of count 1, conspiracy to commit murder, and count 2, murder with use of a deadly weapon. On count 1, you're sentenced to 24 to 60 months in Nevada Department of Corrections. That is to run consecutive to count 2. On the second-degree murder, you're sentenced to 10 to 25 years from the Nevada Department of Corrections. The total sentence, the aggregate sentence, will be 18 to 45 years in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
As for Kelsey, in her typical reckless style, she agreed to an Alford plea, which allowed her to formally plead not guilty while effectively acknowledging that the state had enough evidence for a conviction. She signed the deal in November of that year, and 2 months later, on the 10th of January 2023, She was sentenced to 10-25 years in prison. During the sentencing, Kelsey cried, but likely not because of the crime or the harm she caused. She was crying for herself. The lead prosecutor summarized her attitude perfectly. She was willing to leave a man she had known for years, who supported her and her child financially, to rot in the trunk of a car in the desert, a car Tom paid for. This vividly shows just how selfish and heartless this woman was. Personally, I believe she deserved a much longer sentence. This person, obsessed with drugs, partying, and her own ego, exploited not only Tom's money but also his kindness. She didn't care about him or his life. She only wanted the dollars he had earned over the years. She didn't even do the dirty work herself, but ordered John to kill Tom, who ended up receiving a harsher punishment as a result. She is the sole reason other people ended up behind bars, why loved ones are mourning, and why a good man lost his life. I'm personally amazed that she didn't get the maximum sentence for this crime. Tom's partner, Judy, had to watch court sessions where Kelsey laughed and joked, as if nothing had happened. Even if she wasn't formally guilty, the person she knew had just died, and she acted with the nonchalance of someone at a photo shoot. This only reveals the true nature of Kelsey Turner. No matter why Tom tried to help a single mother, it's tragic that someone who helped so many paid such a high price for it. To this day, he is remembered in the community by family, friends, patients, all those he helped, even at the expense of his own comfort. Tom is remembered as a kind man, always willing to help. Judy still mourns Tom and often imagines him walking through the door, even though deep down she knows it will never happen. That concludes the story. I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Tom's actions? And what about Kelsey? Share your comments. Until next time.